Good afternoon. You're watching AB Live from the studio after quite some time, and I must tell you that we missed you as much as you missed us. Well, welcome to the show, and today we are going to be talking about artificial intelligence on our first episode from the studio here. And just to remind you all, we are live on YouTube and Facebook. So if you do have any questions, just post them in the comments box below and we will take them here with our guests. So talking about artificial intelligence, Dubai ranked first globally when it comes to FDI investment and the attraction of FDI in AI and robotics. The city attracted $21 billion when it comes to AI just in the last few years between 2015 and 2017. The UAE is also one of the first countries to announce a national AI strategy back in 2017. But the question right now is how exactly and what are the solutions that artificial intelligence is going to provide to businesses from an investment standpoint, a revenue standpoint, and of course an operations standpoint. And to discuss just that, we have in the studios joining us Massio, Cannizzo and Kareem Farid. Thank you so much for joining us here.
Pleasure.
Great. So I think let's start with what you do first, Massimo, Jellify, and how exactly can AI be incorporated in the real world and how you have done it for your organization.
Sure. Jellify, first of all, is a company that is fostering innovation at 360 degrees. Actually, we have three kinds of business where we focus in our kind of catalog of services and so on. One is advisory and innovation consulting to help corporates to do their projects in innovation. The second is acceleration and somehow helping, advising and supporting the startups to succeed.
Okay.
So actually we also give investments and advisory as well.
Right.
And then we manage investment on the startups, on the innovation. Our investment as a Jellify, but also we manage a fund, a venture capital fund, that so other investors can join as well.
Okay.
And we are 100% focused on B2B, 100% focused on innovation, and 100% focused on blockchain, artificial intelligence, and
which is what we're talking about today.
Industrial IoT and cybersecurity. So this is our focus as a Jellify group.
Brilliant.
We opened in Middle East recently in this year, 2020, and we are happy to be here.
Great, we are happy to have you here as well and looking forward to what Jellify has to offer to this region. Kareem, coming to you now, I know you have a new product launch very soon, and I'll be very honest, I'm a little worried about my job when you mentioned what the product was, so tell us more.
So we have very soon, after a few days, we will launch Kundera. Kundera is an AI researcher and writer. And as scary as it sounds, and when I posted demo, for example, on LinkedIn, everyone was like, oh, wow, we are going to lose our jobs.
Yes.
The fact is, this is a misperception about AI in general and different applications. AI is here, and products like Kundera are here to empower and enable us as whoever is working in media, in any sector, to do better job, and as well to support businesses to minimize cost and to increase the profit margin. So if, for example, I'm giving an example for communication agency. I'm coming from agency background. So from communication agency background, on our timesheet, we used to put, I'd say, like thousands of hours every year on research and drafting summaries, whether executive summary or any kind of summaries and draft and and drafts. So when I look at this and I look what Kundera does, Kundera basically, you provide a headline or the topic, and Kundera will do the research, will write a summary for you, and will give you all the references used in this write-up.
Okay.
So here, it is basically all of this in 1 minute.
Right.
So it is basically, we saved thousands of hours, we made them let's say, thousands of minutes.
Right, so it's basically taking away the laborious work and letting us do the creative work.
Exactly.
Then. That's what the point is. So we still have our jobs, by the way.
Yeah, you have.
Right, all right. That's very reassuring to know. But now you spoke about your particular industries. Let's talk about the business in general. I think one of the mindsets we've had traditionally is that a lot of companies, especially the traditional companies, not the tech digital companies, they've thought that AI is going to go, it's going to pass, it's a phase. And then come COVID, they realized that to gain that competitive advantage and to survive even, they really require to move towards AI, and if not AI, digital. So at this point, what would you say, coming back to the first question, what are the key solutions that AI is going to provide to businesses on a day-to-day basis? If it's automation of the regular tasks, like you mentioned with what Cannizzo is doing, or if it's a better communication, meetings, etc., all of these menial tasks, how is it going to help? I'll start with you, Massio.
Sure. First of all, I don't think artificial intelligence will pass. I think that this is a key milestone in the progress and the evolution of humankind. I think that we should not be scared about it just because we created it, and we have to dominate it and manage it. Like we did with the nuclear energy in the past, where you did with the steam engines, like we did with steel, and we did with stones and the wheels.
Yeah.
I think that this is just another step, another opportunity that we have to augment the capabilities of humans. And that's all. I mean, it's just the ability to accept that together with machines we can do better.
Okay.
This is the way to look at it. So there is not the problem to lose job, as we said before, is the opportunity to do a better job leveraging this technology, like it happened in the past. So say that, this I think is important. In terms of what we are observing, especially now in the pandemic, I think that is something that is also making the difference from who believed in the digital transformation and who didn't. And artificial intelligence is the most important part of it, because digital transformation means automation, means data, and data it's fuel for artificial intelligence. So first of all, I don't think nobody could activate artificial intelligence during the lockdown. It was not enough time to do all this. So who did it had an advantage to do that. Who didn't that before, I think, was suffering quite a bit. If I look at what was the boost in e-commerce, I think that who was able to do e-commerce, but especially who had a base of data of the customer, able to do the right digital marketing and matching the preference and the needs of the people, did a lot of business. Amazon was multiplying by 40% the revenues in this year-on-year. 71% is actually the increase of the e-commerce transaction all over the world in this part of the year compared with the last year.
Right.
So I think that digital marketing had huge importance.
For sure. So now we're talking about digital transformation, but what's the role that AI specifically plays in that?
Exactly, because AI is enabling the ability to sell something to the customer that he needs, because who has this data, and artificial intelligence, predictive analytics, and all the engines on, and also machine learning, learning from the behaviors of the consumers, can propose proactively products to the customers. So of course everybody was selling in e-commerce. So who was selling more? Who was closer to the customer, who had the data and artificial intelligence to understand the customer very deeply.
Sure, so you're talking about the recommendations on one side, which is helping with the increase in businesses for certain sectors. But again, the grander scheme of things, if you're talking about businesses that run on manufacturing, operations, etc., what is the tangible impact AI has had over the course of the last few months during the COVID era?
Actually, the entire issue here is everyone is scared from AI to this point that they don't read about it or know about it better. For example, like right now, everyone is using AI in a way or another, starting from your phone and how even you are looking for pictures. Now, if you go to the search on any iPhone or any Google Android phone and write sky, the phone will get you all the pictures that includes sky.
Yeah.
This is AI. This is image, like picture recognition and so on.
Yeah.
And it leveraged different kind of machine learning in order to do that. Same for Gmail. Gmail, for example, uses something called natural language processing to recognize what you are saying and complete the sentence for you. Same for LinkedIn when you are replying to a message and so on. This, as much as it sounds so simple, but it reduced a lot of time that we are using to do these simple tasks. But despite of what is already on our plate and there has a bit of integration of AI in it, there are now, when we are looking at people working from home, one of the major challenges, for example, is the mental health.
Yeah.
There is no line anymore between professional and personal.
Correct, yeah.
So while we are having that in place, we need somehow to motivate and encourage our staff to be more productive and to increase the efficiency as well. All of that, while we are not, like, businesses should not increase the cost, decrease it. And how can we do, and increase, of course, the profit margin? How can we do this? By using, or by inventing or using, licensing AI tools. For example, one of the best examples for AI, I'm a CEO of any company, and I have tens of thousands of financial records. So basically, if I'm going to attend a meeting, so for someone from the finance is going to take me through this entire long sheet, I wasted my time enough.
Right.
But with AI, for example, there are AI algorithms that can read, understand, study, and analyze, and give you a narrative and visuals instead of that. So instead of reading 10,000 records, you just go for one page and you are perfectly fine.
Right.
Despite of this, and again, if I'm talking about the cost efficiency specifically, when we are saying that AI can help in making operation much smoother and the productivity much higher, this not necessarily coming with high cost. Because basically not every single company has to develop its own solution.
Right.
Or its own complicated system. There are many services like being sold, like software sold as a service everywhere that can help in automating, or not only automating, in supporting this and achieving the same goals with almost half the budget, instead of like each employee spending $10,000 a year worth of time in a research, for example. They can invest like $100 a year for each employee and get something to sort out.
Sorry, but when you're talking about cost efficiency here, I have to ask you, so when you talk about AI, you're not just talking about cost when it comes to investing in the software or the technology. It's also cost around the training of people, because people don't know. There's a whole pivot or a shift that has to happen. For example, a brick and mortar retail store, if it has to go digital, there's a whole other set of costs involved.
100%.
So when you're talking about investment, expenditure, and of course returns, is there a parity there? Do you think businesses are going to have the question in their mind about, is it really worth investing in?
Absolutely.
And if they ask that question, what would you say?
Absolutely. I think that the return on investment of artificial intelligence as a software, as a practice, is absolutely one of the highest compared with other technologies. Of course, as we said, they need artificial intelligence needs fuel, need data. So data should be the outcome of several months and years of work. But just the software artificial intelligence to leverage this is very effective. For example, I want to mention two cases of our experience and also our portfolio of startups that we apply. One is a company called Cyberdyne. We did a project with Cyberdyne using using artificial intelligence to optimize the production chain of a high-tech producer for automotive market, a big one, and we were able to increase the productivity of the chain by 8%, and the ratio between how much they invested and how much the return was 100 times what they invested. And another case is another startup, one of the 25 we have in our portfolio, is called Brain. It is using artificial intelligence with sensors in the buildings or in big malls where usually there is a waste in terms of cooling and energy consumption, in order to cut by 25% the cost of the energy for a building. And this is compared with less than, I think, $500,000 project. That is, I mean, in 1 year, less than one, in 9 months is completely recovered as investment. So I think that it's a huge impact. And that's the reason why there is a plan for the Middle East in particular to reach by 2030 $320 billion of benefits in terms of cost reduction and major revenues. And this is, as you said before, I think in one of the five position in the order worldwide, even very close to United States and other big countries. So Middle East is the right place to be.
Great, and I think you've answered the first part about the whole cost efficiency, and you have as well. But then one of the things you said right now is about the scale of things, essentially, right? It's so huge, and when we move into smarter cities and when we go into a more connected society, we're talking about IoT, etc. One of the problems and challenges that comes with it is security, and that is another challenge that comes for AI as well. When you're talking about cyber security in this whole connected world, we have limited control. And there's the other elements, the antisocial elements, who also have access to the same technologies that we have access to. How do you target or how do you address this issue?
Basically, as much as there is two investments you can't put, like use each of them, make any of them only. For example, if I'm investing in AI, I have to invest in the infrastructure of security, because security is not, like as a firm, I'm not going to invest for security only for the AI applications that I'm going to have. No, but I'm investing in the security for my entire firm, for every digital practice or every digital component I have and I use. And the security of data at this point has, like, still, it falls under the infrastructure needed for each single business. And here it would come for, like, for example, a lot of publications, media specifically, they didn't care much before about hiring a CTO, for example. But now it is a must. Because two things. First, this CTO will help in bringing on board added values.
This kind of control. When these data are only property of private companies, of course, that are out of the national regulation, this is presenting a creep in the system. So in the future, I think that we will see a lot happening regarding regulating data, regulating the use of data.
But when you,
we know about it.
But when you talk about regulations particularly, and when you've just said that, you know, regulation is good and probably what we need, there is one little concern I have, which is, you know, with higher regulatory requirements, especially for user-generated content platforms, there are going to be the giants, right, like the tech giants that are going to benefit from it, like Facebook or Amazon, for example, because they're going to benefit from the regulations because they're aware of it, and like you said, they're not incumbents, they are tech or digital natives. But this is going to also stop or restrict the startups and the smaller businesses from coming up, eliminating competition from that space. So don't you think basically it's going to be restrictive when there's too much regulation?
I don't think so. Regulation should help everyone. And basically, if I'm saying that startups will apply like these kind of regulations and rules that they don't, for example, share the user data to any third party or anything, this will help them to start on the right path. Not like Facebook to start and eat everything, every piece of information out there, and then now we are trying to fight back.
Sure.
So putting the right, again, infrastructure will take us to the right place. But here, the question is not about how this is going to impact startups, but who is going, or regulation in theory is amazing.
Yeah.
But who is going to make these regulations? Are they know enough technology? They know enough business technology and users' behaviors and users' mindset and so on? This is the main challenge. We need to have like talks between providers, technology providers and developers and regulations authorities in order to be able to come up with, let's say, joint efforts to tackle this challenge of the privacy of any citizens of any country.
Great. I think that is exactly one of the questions we've just gotten on our Facebook feed. So it says, how can private sector support governments with AI? That is one of the questions we just got on our Facebook pages. So who wants to take this question?
Yeah, it's fine. Both of us.
You want to go first, Massimo?
I think I will be very short. I think that the private sectors has a lot of knowledge and a lot of science behind the use of data, the use of technology and so on, that the governments need to leverage, first of all. Second, I think that the private sector can support the government in their role to orchestrate what is happening about the innovation in terms of technology.
Yeah.
So instead of having a jungle of everybody doing same thing but in a very competitive way, I think that this regulation and government orchestrating these marketplaces will give a more secure environment, and this is something that the private sector has to, I think, accept and support, because it will be beneficial for everybody.
In this context, when you're talking about
I add to this one point?
Sure, go for it.
Here, when we talk about government and the relationship between government and private sectors, it is not limited to regulations, not limited to regulator and someone has to comply with these regulations.
Yeah.
But here, government as well is a consumer and a customer of private sector technology firms in general, because government, in order to be able to provide, let's say, not better services, but like better regulations even for and managing its finances and so on more efficiently, they need private sector. And private sector is counting on governments for growth as well, because there is thousands of startups, thousands of companies that their main focus is providing such services for governments, automating many of the services, let's say for IDs, for security, for example, and face detection and so on.
Yeah.
AI is here to help government in fighting crime.
Yeah.
So government here in this specific area is regulator and a user.
Right.
This is very tricky part.
For sure. Wow. So that's very interesting, right? How they can actually come and join hands in terms of, you know, exactly whatever you've spoken so far. But now just moving towards the last part of our conversation, which is about the road ahead for Dubai, for this region, for the UAE. What would you say is the next steps when it comes to the implementation and the incorporation of AI from a business standpoint? And when you're talking about employees, the discussion we've just had in the past, clearly, if they're not taking jobs, if they're not really taking jobs, our job roles are going to change for sure, right, over the years. So let's talk about that a little bit before we end this conversation. How exactly do you see our roles changing from what it was, say, 5 years back to what it is going to be in the next 5 years? I'll start with you, Massimo.
Yeah, I think that what is the next step is two things mainly. One is the focus of this question that is related to people and skills. One is related on the leverage data that we discussed already, but this is what's happening now, exactly to collect the right data in order to leverage from an AI point of view.
Right.
But back to the people, that is very important. I think that technology is going very fast, very fast, and the culture is not following the speed.
Yeah.
So we have a big problem, because actually we need to not only to learn new technologies, but the new generation are adopting, and the old generation need to switch and shift in this change in order to switch culture, to switch mindset. It's not just an incremental learning.
Sure.
We need to unlearn something, to relearn something, and I'm very clear on this. We, at least me, we're growing in learning how to be. I'm an engineer. I studied electronics. I studied computer science, and I learned how to be very rational and very structured as an engineer, and think like a machine.
Yeah.
But now the machine, there is no way to be worse than me, or the opposite. They will be much better than me. It doesn't make sense that I continue to develop people that think like machine. And I need to start to teach people to think like humans.
Just going a little off track, though.
Creativity is and emotional skills and emotional intelligence is becoming the new karma.
Sure, but like just what you've said so far, do you think human beings biologically are also evolving to accommodate machines and to accommodate this new technology?
This is a bit scary, but I remember, like, on top of my mind, for example, what Elon Musk is doing, and with the Neuralink, and how he wants to connect the human brain with a device in order to be able to read and basically extract memories, for example, and save them on an external hard drive.
Yeah.
As crazy as this sounds, but this is one of AI applications. But
wow, it's crazy.
here, yeah, it is, and we will see a lot of this. But
it's from Harry Potter.
Years. It will take years and years and years unless we reach to a consumer-friendly solution like this. But I'm like a bit the opposite than Massio here. I studied computer science as well.
Okay.
But I left computer science before I finished school. Why? Because I believe more in experiments and practical experience than the theoretical part of it.
Yeah.
So from here, my main focus is on the day-to-day challenges. How can AI benefit everyone in this evolution of workplace, evolution of jobs and everything, in sorting out the day-to-day challenges. These solutions that would help in this, let's say, interim phase of change and transition from non-digital to digital and AI, what will define how jobs is going to evolve. So for example, if someone now has knows nothing about digital and about AI, will never be able to go and work in the future directly. We need like realistic transition planned for each firm. Each firm should have this, and with introduction for AI, step by step, in automating maybe some of the tasks, reducing some of the commodity work, or maybe restructuring some work to be more better. So we focus on, again, humans, on creativity, critical thinking, and what is more important, problem solving.
Yeah, and for sure, training and upskilling and reskilling is also an element of it, right? Sorry, Massimo, you had a point to add as well, right?
Yeah. Actually, on what we are talking about, the health and the body and the augmentation with technology, I just wanted to share the point of view that I don't think that a completely bionic arm should be seen as more invasive than a pacemaker. Pacemaker we bring since maybe 30 years, I don't know exactly, but now it's fully accepted like an a technology that is letting me survive if I have health problems. We accepted many other technology. Laser for the eyes, laser surgery for the eyes is fully accepted now. Why we should not accept the use of a chip that is helping me to get my health better, or to increase the length of the duration of my life?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think there are, as always, the threats in terms of risk, safety, and whatever. But in any case, it's a good game to play and to try to.
And everyone is playing it, so might as well.
Exactly. So why not? I mean, we just fight against the risk, and we get the benefits. This is the play.
And that answers actually my last question, which is if we are ready. Even if we are not ready, it looks like we have to play it. There's no choice anymore.
Yeah, I think this is even true. But I think this is should not be seen, as I said at the beginning, like a threat, but as an opportunity.
Right.
Because actually, what I say before, and I strongly believe on that, I always say that every time I am interviewed, I say that we are in a fantastic moment of the history of the humankind where actually we are learning things that are upgrading, elevating the human abilities. No, I don't want to reach some esoteric discussion regarding human deus or something like that, gods and so on, because it's very tricky. But I think it's very important to understand that we can, using this technology, elevate the potential of the humankind. It's just all about being good in doing this and not being bad in doing this. That's it.
Great, great. Thank you so much again for this very insightful conversation. I think, like you said, there are so many arms to this conversation when it comes to data and the collection of clean data. And again, if human beings are evolving to accommodate technology, various arms of it. So we will continue this conversation. But for now, I have to say thank you and goodbye for joining us here. And thank you to all the viewers who've tuned in today and watched us live and sent in all of those questions. We will be taking them after the show and continuing this conversation on our social handles. So follow us everywhere, basically. And like I say right now, keep positive and test negative. See you.
Thank you.